it is 12:11.
Well,
I'd like to call the
Jim's had
meeting
it.
of the
I don't know
Legislative
what it is.
Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Member Childress.
Yes.
Chair Desar.
Here.
Vice Chair Galassi.
Here.
Member Deacon Garcia.
Here.
Member Ozak.
Here.
Member Schwarzy.
Okay, we're all here. Great. And first of all, I'd like to approve the minutes. I move to approve 25-0089, the legislative minutes. Regular
Second.
meeting Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. The moved and seconded. All in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Chair's remarks. I do have some actually. In Washington, I believe it's important to underscore all the hard work from our legislators in Washington. And so I'd like to tell you what they're doing. Representative Ramirez, she sent a letter demanding answers from Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins on the effects of the Musk-Trump agenda and the effects it's having on our veterans, their livelihoods, and their ability to access their services and benefits. I will keep you posted on that. Representative Caston and Representative Robin Kelly introduced the Gun Trafficker Detection Act, which this made national news, to help end the flow of illegal guns into Illinois by requiring gun owners to report if their gun is lost or stolen within 24 hours. And the news report that I saw just said that, there will be a crime committed with somebody's gun and they'll say, oh, I lost it, or it was stolen, months after it was supposedly lost or stolen. So this firms that up, which I appreciate. Representative Krishnamurthy, he joined a majority of his colleagues in the House Democratic Caucus in a letter to acting director of the National Institutes of Health that expresses alarm at the illegal decision by President Trump to reduce the reimbursement rate for indirect research costs to 15% across the board. And Representative Foster released a statement condemning the firing of the National Science Foundation federal employees. That's Washington. In Springfield, a joint session of the Illinois General Assembly convened on Wednesday to hear Governor Pritzker's 7th budget and state address. Leading off the speech were highlights of the administration's achievements to date, which are reducing more than $12 billion in debt, boosting the rainy day fund to over $2 billion, which I also credit Susana Mendoza for that as well. Improving the state's pension funded ratio and receiving 9 upgrades in the state's credit ratings. The governor also cited education, healthcare, public safety, infrastructure, and job creation as areas the state has made ongoing investments in. The governor's proposed budget, I'm sure you saw this on the news, for FY 2026, operating revenues, $55.4 billion, and spending $55.2 billion, which I thought was good news. One final note, March 19th, you might want to write it down on your calendars. Chip Hume is Humes, more than one Chip, is planning a drive down to Springfield in coordination with ISACO. So right after this meeting, Jeremy will be sending out an invitation if you'd like to have a trip to Springfield. Jeremy will send out.
Yeah, so it's our drive down. We do that in coordination with the ISACO legislative day, as well as their reception afterwards. So Chip is working on getting meetings set up for that. I know some of you have reached out about going to like ISACO stuff, but we'll be doing something corresponding with them just to make sure we're not duplicating efforts.
Is that an overnight stay or not? It
You
is?
can stay overnight, yeah, if you want.
Do you have a date?
Or
19.
March 19th.
Yes.
Sorry.
Some of the activities begin at 8 o'clock, so I think that people drive down and then start,
Yeah.
the night before. And
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so there'll
And then you
be,
said there were night things that night.
so there'll be, ISACO will have some things in the morning that they'll be doing. Again, we're doing our stuff. If you want to do the ISACO stuff, you can. Chip will be setting meetings up specifically for DuPage on that same day, because everyone's kind of got their calendars open for county officials to come down. So it just makes it more efficient in the way that we are approaching this. So, but you should get the ISACO updates. I'll give you that agenda as well. And then the evening of the 19th is ISACO's legislative reception in Springfield.
So it's a 2-night excursion.
1 or 2 nights, depending on what fits your schedule.
All right, we'll get an email
Yeah.
shortly this afternoon. All right, with that, I move to approve the legislative program for the LEG-R-00001-25, the resolution adopting the county's 2025 federal legislative program. It's been moved and seconded. Comments? Greg?
So I was hoping Mary Keating would be here. I know she spoke with you. Well, she knows about it. I talked to
It's
her.
my fault. I didn't call her.
Well, and she may not need to be here, but I know she spoke with you.
Mary
And
Keating was intimately involved in this.
That's
going
what I
through-
wanna make
going
sure.
Through the numbers, going through the stuff
the
that's like.
wording and
Wording
everything.
and
Okay,
attainability of the processes. Certain programs are 100% not gonna happen. The stuff that's in here is the attainable,
okay.
you know, politics is the
That's-
art of the attainable. So this is all
Okay.
attainable stuff.
Okay. That was and
Yeah.
she doesn't necessarily have to be here as long as you feel like you're representing
Yeah, she,
human services.
I mean, she was intimately involved
Okay.
with this.
Thanks, Jeremy.
All of our senior staff was, everyone, it was all hands on deck on this one.
You know, and one of the things that Jeremy and I talked about is that it might be more vague than some of our other federal agendas, just because we don't know what's going on in Washington right now. Other questions,
Understatement.
concerns, comments? Yes, Eden.
Chair. So I'm just looking at the 2025 legislative agenda, specifically on the section for protect our residents from gun violence. And in that we reference the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and several things that were done in the Biden administration. And I'm wondering if a lot of those are now, null, if they're now null, because a lot of the stuff they were doing for community mental health, for secure storage, for all of those things, is that continuing? Can we, I'm just saying this because in the legislative agenda, it was discussed as if it was already done, right? Accomplished, checked off kind of thing. But now with this new administration, we're moving backwards, obviously, and we no longer even have an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. So, so my question is there something that we could put in here to strengthen this language, or should we just leave it as is because this is what it is, right?
I think it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
probably the best way to approach this. This was a very, given the state of affairs, this was a very deliberate, the language in this thing is very deliberate.
Based on the administration we have.
Yes.
I just wanted, I asked Jeremy about the input that you gave, and I'd like to give you the floor just to speak on what you're seeing here, if that's okay with.
Sure.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, Jeremy had asked for my input. I did change some of the language based on, executive orders and making sure that things weren't, sort of automatically sending up a flag that it was in violation of executive order. I think, but one of the things I did add was like local control of community development programs. I think, I think something to emphasize, in the current administration is these programs that are managed by local governments are really, I mean, if you want to, I have lots of enormous respect for people who work in DC and at headquarters level, but they get labeled as these, faceless bureaucrats. And I know that's not the case. We all know that's not the case, but I think if that's the lens that we're looking at things through, I think really emphasizing local control of federal funds, I think is a really important, piece of emphasis. And so, I mean, it's not, I'm not calling it out hugely, but it is, I talk about maintaining local control of community development funding. I think that's a point to really hammer home. Something that's not in here that I think maybe we just think about down the road is, as we look at the potential of, for example, HUD staff being cut by 50 to 75%. So if Congress chooses to maintain those programs at whatever level, we also then need relief from the types of, all of the different approvals that we need to go through and all of the, you know, all the cross-cutting regulations that we have to comply with, because we have to do all of that. We send it to the HUD staff, and if there's nobody there to approve our plans or approve our amendment or release the funds, then we're dead in the water. And so I think that, I think moving forward, that might be a next phase of, as we see, like, if these programs continue in 2025 and 2026, maybe we can also then start to talk about some of the I was telling Jeremy about the environmental review process for these programs. We have to, and, you know, these were all decisions made by good people for good purposes, but we have to consult with the tribes to make sure that anything that we're doing isn't on tribal lands, or we have to consult with the Office of Historic Preservation. We have to look at the Endangered Species Act, like all of these different things that we have to go through, so that a social service agency can buy a new property for folks with disabilities to live in. And so all of that, and like I said, all of that work has to be reviewed by HUD field staff. And if they're not there, then you gotta give us relief. And so I think that's probably something that we should be looking at sort of in a phase 2 of, all right, well, if the landscape's changing, how do we use that as an opportunity to make our work more efficient? So, but, you know, everything in my department is, you know,
Up in the air.
potentially on the chopping block. So I just think, you know, driving home the importance of the work that we do and the, you know, the impact that it has. I don't think we can take enough there. We can overstate how important it is for local communities.
It's the range philosophy, retire all government employees, retire them all.
Mhm.
And then where are we? Okay, as I said to you, oh, go ahead.
No, I was thanking Mary
Oh,
for.
Thank you, Mary. As I say this every time we meet, whether we're talking about a Springfield agenda or the state, the federal agenda, this is a living document. So if things pop up throughout the year, please let me know or let Jeremy know, and we can discuss and talk about adding things to our agenda. Other questions about this one or comments?
When is the trip to Washington? When is that?
NACO?
Oh,
Goes
well, NACO's this
this weekend.
weekend.
Oh. Okay.
Do you want to go to Washington?
Well, isn't there a legislative? Is that what we're talking about? That's
That's
NACO?
NACO, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's where that's Sabah's headed there. Are you guys, anyone else headed there? Michael?
Is the president scheduled to
Mary.
appear at NACO?
so he is going to, there are remarks that will be broadcast at the end of the conference on Tuesday. But it's a pre-recorded, pre-recorded message. And I will be on plane.
I don't know who the keynote will be on at the general session on Monday. I haven't heard.
You'll be there, right, Mary?
Yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
there. I'll be there starting tomorrow.
Thank you to all who are going to represent us. Thank
I'm
you.
not going.
Yeah, and we'll report back at the next legislative meeting if there's
Oh,
anything
thank you.
germane that comes out of it.
And what is the next legislative meeting, do you think?
I mean,
We'll talk.
we'll talk about it. You said those. I don't tell you, you tell me.
Any more comments, questions? And we're all interested to get out of here, do our work and then get out of here. So seeing none, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No? Okay, thank you. Oh, old business. New business. Okay, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you all so much.